I'd like to call the meeting of the Carson City Open Space Advisory Committee meeting to order. It's November 16th, 2015. Could we have a roll call, please?
Chairperson Scott.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Riedel.
Here.
Member Evans.
Here.
Member Fitzsimmons.
Here.
Member Inverson.
Here.
Member Welborn.
Here.
Member Welch.
Here.
A quorum's present.
Thank you. Nice to see everybody. Before we get any further, I'd like to recognize our District Attorney, Jason Woodbury. And I think you have an introduction you might want to make.
I do. Thank you, Chairman Scott. This sitting to my left is Iris Yao. She was in the criminal division of our office and has taken the opportunity to try out civil with an opening that came open. I don't know if we know yet whether she'll be assigned to this particular committee, but she is coming and attending meetings and seeing how things are done. So, Iris Yao.
Thank you, Iris. Nice to have you with us.
Nice to meet you all.
Our reputation precedes us, I can tell. If you're moving a criminal deputy in. Okay, are there any public comments? At this time, we would entertain public comments on items not specifically on the agenda. Any public comments? Okay, thank you. Any changes to the agenda? Modifications?
No changes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, we will move into the agenda proper. My hope is we have a number of things tonight. I'd like to try to move through them. If you think I'm moving too fast, please let me know.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I think we missed item 1, the action on the minutes. I think there are some minutes for approval.
This is not a good precedent, Iris.
I figure you were testing
Thank you.
me.
No, I wasn't. We have minutes from our previous meeting. Thank you, Mr. Woodbury. Do we have any comments, additions, corrections, or changes to the minutes? Do we have a motion?
Nothing from staff.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve the minutes from Monday, August 17th, 2015.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. I would just remind everyone this was the joint meeting we had with the Parks and Recreation Commission at our last meeting. Okay. Any public comment or comments on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Moving right along. Item 3, first item.
Mr. Chair, the first item in front of you is to approve the monitoring report for the Horse Creek Ranch Conservation Easement in 2014. I apologize for the length of time that it took for us to get this to the committee, but the photos in the report, everything documents the current condition of the property. Nothing has changed, but there are a number of items that we continue to watch. Since this report was written, the item has been placed up for sale, but we'll detail that in the next monitoring report for 2015.
What has been placed for sale?
Horse Creek Ranch.
The ranch, okay. Any comments from the committee or questions of staff on the report? Yes, Donna.
I just would like to say that I actually talked to Randy Gaw, who's our trash mob coordinator, actually he's here this evening, about the bull thistle, and he's willing to do a trash mob up there in the spring to remove bull thistle. And he's been getting like 25, 27 people at a time, so they could remove a lot of bull thistle.
That is a great opportunity.
So just keep him posted.
Okay, will do.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Donna. My reaction in looking at the report, I'm happy to see things are relatively stable. I would really like to see us maybe look around a little bit for possibly some grants or some assistance in trying to look at those head cuts a little bit and see if there aren't some things we can do to bring those areas back into a little bit better condition. I realize they're not actively eroding right now, but from a stewardship perspective, maybe there's some things that we could at least look at as possible grant applications or other activities. And I think the weeds were the other thing that's identified it's great that we might get some, trash mob help up there. That's, to me, is a really nice way to help that resource out. And it is the upper end of a pretty important watershed, so.
And just with that opportunity, actually, partnering with the trash mob, it will provide a unique opportunity for the public to come up to the ranch, which is otherwise closed.
That's what I was
Great.
thinking.
Laura?
Just following up on that, I feel like I was up there. I really appreciate the quality of that report. Really excellent. Must have been a huge amount of work to line up those.
Yes.
I'm Margie.
Excuse me, Margie. Sorry.
At least I was this morning, but it's been a busy day. I might be Donna now. Anyway, I did want to mention, when I was looking at some of those areas that could kind of use a little bit of support, a little bit of rehab, I immediately thought of some of the river wranglers' work days that might be able to help with that. And I know Rich has worked extensively on the work days, so he knows what they're capable of and what might be able to work out.
Okay. Yeah, there's no question the report is comprehensive, and the pictures really, really help, and especially over time, so. Okay, this is an area where we have a monitoring report for recommendation of approval by the committee. Is there any public comment at this time? Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion, or is there further discussion from the committee?
I move to approve the report. My thing's not coming up. I move to approve the monitoring report for the Horse Creek Ranch Conservation Easement for 2014.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Item 3B. Rich?
This is staff's recommending. Thank you. Rich Wilkinson, Senior Natural Resource Specialist. Staff is recommending that we put together a grant submittal for funds from the Carson Water Subconservancy District to do some erosion control work in Golden Eagle Lane. And so I've got a small PowerPoint, primarily pictures that kind of show the area. So this is kind of just an overview of the location. And for those of you that might not know where Golden Eagle Lane is, this is the southeast side of Prison Hill. It's adjacent to the Golden Eagle open space property. And Golden Eagle Lane is at the bottom of the picture, and we've kind of highlighted a location where I believe it's been identified in the Unified Pathways Master Plan as a potential site for a trail access. And so looking at the picture, you can see there's a lot of activity up there. This is in the OHV boundary area for Prison Hill. A lot of the issues that I'm seeing in this location, I think drought's a pretty big impact. The shrub vegetation that's out there, there's a lot of decadent material there. We're also dealing with a couple rain events that were pretty substantial. I think the first one, it was in 2011, which started the head cut. And then over the past couple of years, you've seen it in the news, all the flash flooding events that are occurring. Everything that's happened in the Pine Nuts area, in Carson Valley, is kind of coming along that same path. And so we're seeing a lot of the same problems. This particular picture is all the sediment plume that came down from that drainage into the river. Just to kind of give you an estimate of how big it is, it's about 250 feet in width, and it extends out about 75 feet from the bank. So it's kind of altering the course of the Carson River right there. This is the site that we were thinking would be a trail access point. And so just looking at the site before we took this picture and after the event, that sediment is kind of filled in about 2.5 feet thick just in that location there. So there's another view of it. This section too, one concern we have with this location is there's so many multiple social trails and roads. Some of them aren't sustainable based on slope and lack of vegetation. So one of the ideas that we're thinking about doing with this funding would be to close some of those roads that we don't think are sustainable for long term. And then we would have to repair one of our trails that are in that location too. So this is the bottom of the site, and it's kind of hard to see in that picture, but that's probably the deepest incision. It's about 9.5 feet tall right there. And if you go to the top, which is about 600 feet from this location, it starts at about 1.5 feet. And so it's a pretty long, deep incision. So with this proposal, staff had a short window to put in for 319 funds, and we did it. Unfortunately, we missed the window to bring it before this board, just the way the meeting's laid out. But we put in for about $75,000 through NDEP, the 319 program. We didn't make the cut. We would like to go back to Ed James's group with the Carson Water Subconservancy District and look for some support from them. Ed has mentioned to me that they're very concerned about this. Matter of fact, they did write a letter of support that we submitted with the NDEP grant. So we're going to go back out on site this coming Friday and maybe come up with some ideas on how to address this erosion. I did take a local engineering firm out to this location, and they came up with some different ideas on how to help trap the sediment on that site, and some of them involved a rock riprap lining of the channel, maybe putting a retention basin at the bottom, gabions, little rock check dams, some ways that we can hope slow the energy in that location. And so there's not a specific design plan yet. That's kind of still out there to be discussed. And it should have more people involved in the design anyways. But we definitely think there's a significant issue. This particular picture is the actual bank, and it's sloughing off. It's probably one of the most narrow portions of Golden Eagle Lane. And so a lot of the local landowners, the community that lives back there behind the Mexican dam in that area, are really concerned about their sole access to get back there. So they've been talking to Ann and I about trying to find ways that we can address that problem and then try to keep the sediment out of the Carson River. So that's one reason why we brought it before the board. We'd like your support to work on putting something together for the Carson Water Subconservancy District.
Thank you, Rich. Are there questions or comments from staff? Yes, Donna.
Yes, with what's happened, do you still see that as a trailhead, or is that part of the assessment and plan as to whether or not it will continue to be a trailhead after? I mean, if we're going to put a lot of money into repairing it, what is the plan going forward after that?
I can try to answer it, but you can fill in. You probably have a better response. I think it's probably one of the best areas to have a trail access point for that particular location.
Oh, okay.
Because if you go a little bit further north, you get into really high steep banks, and then you'd have to go all the way down probably to the Mexican Dam open space to get to another area where it would be potential. So it's probably one of the better areas.
And it would be limited just due to the size, though.
Pardon?
It would be limited just due to the size right there.
Margie?
Well, I actually have got the first picture in front of me, the one that you started with, Rich.
Okay.
Because I was looking at this and thinking OHV, which I know that it's really fun to go to see how fast you can go straight up a hill. And going straight up a hill is exactly opposite of what we need to be doing to protect this area. Have you or the engineers, or have you gotten far enough to even consider perhaps switchbacking or I mean, I don't see how you could possibly limit OHV use there. You wouldn't want to. But what are you thinking might help?
Well, I refer to the draft management plan, which contains the conservation easement with BLM. And we do have the ability, even in the OHV area, to either alter routes or change them and close them altogether if the results are impacting the natural resources. And there's a couple sections there where we just think that, especially with all the opportunities to get to the same point, that we can definitely try to keep a couple of those sections closed. But we have not had time so far to go up there and see what areas or what trails are sustainable, and we know a couple of them that we think that should probably be put to rest, but we haven't done that far so far.
And that is only specifically for golden eagle. This isn't going to be anything to help the erosion, the flash flood damage down at Mexican Dam? Open space?
This project would be just for golden eagle at this point, but I have taken NDEP and Carson Water Subconservancy staff out to multiple locations, including some areas along Sierra Vista Lane as well on the other side of the river. So they know that we're hoping to put in for future projects with them.
Other comments from the committee? It's really, all it takes is a little moisture to move that stuff. But, you know, to me, we are, well, when you look at Carson River Road, Fifth Street, we're beginning to create some definition on access and limitations on access. And to me, Golden Eagle Lane is kind of the corner of the committed access for OHVs as part of our BLM acquisition. So I would hope that we could do something that would, you know, be sustainable from the standpoint of access, but not not close any access, maybe close certain areas and reroute certain areas from the perspective of the land capabilities, as Margie's alluding to. But I think we owe it to the OHV people to try to find solutions that keep them with an access point, you know, in this vicinity.
That was actually, Mr. Chairman, the point of my question, because I know how much fun it is to see how well you can get up a steep hill, and I hate to, but it's causing.
We lost your mic. I'm sorry, we lost your mic for some reason.
I'm just concerned about, I don't want to limit OHV access. I want to let them get out there and have a good time and do it in a safe and respectful way. And I think my reason for asking the question was more, are there some other things we can build into a more switchback trail that could offer them challenges to make them still feel appreciated?
Sure, and a little bit more to that, Margie. We did have a component in our grant for some education outreach to where we would hopefully try to bring folks from the OHV community into the process, and maybe that's something that we could consider for sure. But I think as far as this funding source goes, the bulk of it would have to go to the actual erosion control structures construction.
Howard?
Yeah, following up with Margie, I think that the grant first and foremost has to be used for the taking care of the sediments flowing into the river, and but still encourage, as we have promised the OHV community, that we would coordinate with them whenever we consider trailhead changes or modifications. So with that, I'm sure we'll have some good public outreach.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't see hill climbs that funnel down directly to the Carson River as being our obligation, but I do think careful, resource-sensitive areas for OHVs is an important component, and it's a balance, and I think staff has the ability to find that and seek that and bring back projects that will help provide that and give a sustainable capability to to maintain that balance. As you look at that, you can see if you get any runoff, it's going to be a challenge. Okay, any public comment? Mr. Graytack, nice to see you.
I'm Dan Graytack, citizen in Carson City. And I think addressing your comments a little bit and kind of Margie's and kind of what Rich is looking like, on Sierra Vista Lane, we have a whole lot of these. And these are places where we're using drainages as roads. And that's something we need to find. How do we fix that? Do we relocate the trail so that we can provide the drainage? If we turn the bottom of that into a detention basin to trap the sediment that's actively moving down that channel and keep it out of the river, how do you call that a trail access? Because it's going to be big, we don't have a lot of room, and especially across the river on Sierra Vista, it's the same way. We meet these. His plan was to put a culvert in there. Well, if we don't have any money, even a temporary thing, it means we're going to be draining that stuff across the road in every event. And that stuff's all mobile. And we see bigger and bigger rain events in the pine nuts. So I think it's interesting that if this could be something that we really get a good consensus of how we address this kind of a problem, we have a whole lot of these places up and down the river that we need to address.
Thank you, Dan. I think on Sierra Vista Lane, many of those places are BLM, although we have some ownership there now too. But good points, because one event can take a detention basin and turn it into a nice full, lots of sediment to remove for the next one kind of a situation. Any other public comment? Any other comments or questions from the committee? Do we have a motion?
I move to recommend to the Board of Supervisors the submittal of a grant application at the Carson Water Subconservancy District for watershed improvements in the area of Golden Eagle Lane.
Thank you, Margie. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Seconded by Howard. Any further comment? Public comment? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. I think keeping the NDEP water quality folks advised of what's happening where people don't normally go to the Carson River is really a good idea. 319 grants, sometimes if they know we have small places we can put money, if they happen to have it available at the end of a grant year or something like that, it's quite handy to have them educated. So thank you. Okay, item 3C. This kind of takes up on some of the things we've talked about on our open space and activities within open space. So, Ann, do you want to discuss that one?
Just give me 1 minute, see if I can open up the maps here. Sure. It's a new computer, so we probably don't have Adobe downloaded here. Do you want to see if you can try to download anything? I may not be able to open it. Okay. Rich will try.
Give us the verbal overview, and maybe we'll find maps in a minute.
And a few of you have printed maps, so that will be helpful as well. But what I wanted to provide on the screen is for the public at home. The agenda item is to approve hunting per state of Nevada regulations only on certain properties managed by the Open Space Division. And so a brief background on what brought us to where we are today. We have last year the draft management plan for open space properties along the river, in which there was a section of that document titled Shooting. There were a few paragraphs within that chapter that talked about hunting, and how at that time it was also an unresolved question, maybe from the committee, but from the public as well. And we had requests from the public to consider in the canyon, on Carson River Canyon, whether waterfowl hunting would be allowed. And specifically hearing from the public and even hearing from NDOW, the recommendations there would be shotgun only, waterfowl, so it's a certain hunting season. From September is when the youth hunt starts, October through January is the adult hunt. So limited firearm, limited season in the winter. And then also, we were talking about the open space ordinances, which have not been completed. And in that last discussion, there was also discussion on hunting, another unresolved question. And so I'm bringing this to the committee because as I bring those documents back to you for the final recommendations, staff needs a direction from the committee. What is the direction that we want to head on the management of our open space properties? So part of your staff report in here, I have a few pages from the management plan, the wording that was in there. And also, I have the open space opportunities map with some of the properties highlighted for you. There's the Wilson acquisition. Access to that property is up Ash Canyon Road. It's at the top. It is surrounded by the U.S. Forest Service and then by Nevada State Parks, all of which allow hunting on those properties. Other properties in question is the Horse Creek Ranch fee title acquisition compared to the easement, and the Hutchinson, and those properties are all accessed by Kings Canyon, and again surrounded by Forest Service. And then on the east side is Carson River Canyon open space. And then the other map that's in your packet, this was the first draft, so this is not complete and accurate to where our current statutes are. And so some of the items I do want to point out that are incorrect is along the river, so that the reddish color on the map is prohibited. So shotguns, rifles, everything. That is 100% prohibited. So what this first draft of the map did not account for was under Carson City Municipal Code 8.12.010, item 1D, along the Carson River. So shotguns are prohibited. We just missed that in this first draft here. And then the yellow-orange color map is where shotguns are allowed. Rifles are prohibited, and beyond that boundary, rifles are okay, and other firearms. A few of the other items I noticed on this map, going back to the idea of the prohibitions of shotguns where there are dwellings, buildings, or other places of public resort. There's a few red or pink bubbles in the colored area. In some of the areas, there is no longer a building or structure. It's, yeah. And we may just not be able to open it. And so looking at this map, you can see in certain areas, per our municipal code, firearms would be allowed. And so one of the reasons we're trying to bring this to the committee is if it's the direction of the committee to prohibit hunting, it will also be a challenge for staff to manage that when we're surrounded by lands that allow it. For example, just throw an example, if a hunter is out deer hunting up in Kings Canyon, and shoots on the Forest Service land, but the deer doesn't fall until it comes to open space, and he's dressing it, and our park ranger comes, we won't know where the animal shot. So just the reality of enforcing this specific item as it relates to firearms on open space. I think target shooting, we can agree that that is not considered a passive activity and should be prohibited altogether, but hunting is just another element of that question that I'd like the committee to discuss. Are there any questions?
And can I frame something to make sure I have it right, and then we can talk among, get the committee members' comments. If I understand what you're saying, the current restrictions on firearms discharge map, which is the yellow and the orange,
Yes.
basically the far west and the far east of Ormsby County, Carson City, are open because they're BLM and Forest Service for the most part, and hunting is allowed.
Correct.
Currently, there's significant restrictions up Ash Canyon, up Kings Canyon, down along the Carson River, south to the county line, for restricted or prohibited shooting at that point. And that shooting refers to rifle, is that correct?
Shotgun within 1,000 feet and then outside, I always have difficulty explaining this, and then rifle beyond that,
Okay, and so
and 5,000 feet, sorry.
we have some open space properties that are adjacent to or close to Forest Service, or in the case of some of the others, BLM, where they would not regulate, and we're going to consider discussing tonight what our recommendations would be for those. But if I'm hearing what you're saying, you're suggesting that for at least most of the open space, staff is recommending that we have shotgun only in terms of where we are, we're not otherwise violating the municipal code with the restrictions we have now. Is that kind of accurate?
I will try to clarify the clarification. Okay, so open space, we have about 14 properties that we own and manage. And so based on current restrictions in municipal code in Chapter 8, most properties would not be open to hunting, period, because they fall within 1,000 feet or 5,000 feet. And so the properties identified on this map are those that lie just outside that, and currently would not have any restrictions.
And you're looking for a direction from the
Yes,
committee
yes.
on those properties?
Yes.
Okay,
Mr.
thank
Chair.
you. Comments, questions? Start with Toby. We'll work our way this way.
I just have a question for clarification. Since the map is for discharge of firearms, does that include bow hunting?
Yes, I believe it does. I think bow, is it in there?
Yeah, I think it is too. Let's see.
Actually, I don't see bow hunting in there.
I don't think
I don't think it's included.
And that's my clarification question, just because it's hunting versus discharge. I guess second with this, if we did choose, would these maps, the revised official version for discharge and for hunting, be available online and provided to NDOW as well?
Yes, it will.
Laura?
I'm sorry, I just want to make sure, I think I understand your clarification. Basically, if we look at the colored map showing our properties, and then you talk about the opportunities, there are opportunities within the areas you've called out, is that correct? So Horse Creek Ranch fee title, Carson River, Hutchison acquisition, and the Wilson acquisition?
Correct.
So that's really all we're talking about?
Correct.
Okay.
Everything else is already restricted by the municipal code, yeah.
I just wanted to
Thank
make
you.
that clear.
Yeah, thank you for doing
Because I
that.
thought that's what she was saying, but then I got confused. Thank you.
Okay, other questions or, yes, Donna?
Now I'm confused. Because looking at this map, Prison Hill would be a shotgun area. Is that correct?
That is correct, except the conservation easement does not allow hunting.
Okay, so Prison Hill
So
then
that is
is,
something, as Toby was saying, whatever restrictions we have, we need to correspond with NDOW, so they also have on their books.
okay. My next question is the Carson River Canyon. There's shotgun restriction for the early part of the canyon, and then there's no restriction, and we own properties in there. How would that affect or be affected by a rail trail when we get that through there?
That's pretty much part of your discussion.
Yeah, it looks
Is it
like-
compatible?
It looks like portions of our open space would be within the restricted area and possibly close to Lyon County, some of them may not.
Right.
Okay, other comments, questions from the committee? Laura?
Well, just following up on that, in light of what you were talking about, the jurisdictional issues, it seems like it would be more compounded out in the Carson River open space than on the west side properties, right? Because we got a county line, so even, there's kind of a qualitative difference between that and the others. Or do you agree?
I'll answer first, and then we'll see where Roger was going to add to that. Yes, I would agree, in the sense that the lands up on the west side are a little bit more surrounded by federal land than Carson River Canyon open spaces, and without any restrictions up there, shotgun or rifle. The canyon, not just the rail trail, but the V&T train when it comes through. I don't know what the conflicts would be there. But it's also, the questions that we have been asked is just the consideration of shotgun hunting for waterfowl during a short season. So as that came to us, it was also limited in scope.
That was going to be my comment, but also maybe to address Donna's concerns, or maybe what the issue she brought up about the possibility of a future Rails to Trails trail going through the Carson River Canyon, and restricted hunting to shotguns for waterfowl. We have the same situation basically on the west side of the county as well. The new Ash to Kings Trail is mostly on Forest Service property. Of the almost 8 miles of trail, probably 6 miles or so are actually on Forest Service property that does allow hunting. Then you move a little further west, you get into Lake Tahoe Nevada State Park. There's also hunting available in that area too, where of course there are mountain bike trails and there's hiking trails too. So it's not uncommon to have recreational trails in a hunting area. It's all over the West. It's a situation where people have to be aware of, the area they're entering and the possible hazards, and hunters have to be aware too that there are other recreationists in there besides hunters in the same area.
Toby?
And I guess just to point out to Donna that I believe with the hunter safeties and general restrictions, you can't fire across, you're not supposed to fire across trails or from roads.
Other comments from the committee? Questions? Public comment?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Good thing Ann's here, she reminded me. But Morris White, who regularly attends the meetings, was not able to come to the meeting today, and he sent us an email, and I asked him if he wanted me to read the substance of his email into the record. He wanted me to do so, so I'll just go ahead and read the email. It says, "Morning, Roger. Sadly, I cannot attend the open space meeting tonight, November 16, 2015. Regarding item 3C, I fully support the suggested action of allowing hunting on open space properties. The Nevada Department of Wildlife are experts when it comes to knowing when it is and it is not appropriate for hunting. Adopting city ordinances that align with NDOW hunting regulations with regard to shotguns is appropriate for the Carson River corridor portion of the open space and parks properties. I wonder if it is appropriate to simply refer prospective hunters to the NDOW regulations with a notice that hunting is restricted to shotguns and that slugs are disallowed. In regard to those areas and on the west side of Carson City, it is likewise appropriate to adopt NDOW hunting regulations for these properties. These areas do not lend themselves to big game hunting, or these areas do, lend themselves to big game hunting, and this activity should be allowed. As I've said in the past, we can all play together if we work together. Thank you for your consideration in this matter. Maurice White."
Thank you, Roger. I think, as if I'm understanding staff's thoughts, at this point, what you're thinking is on the west side of town where we're integrated with Forest Service and parks and hunting is allowed, that we would, staff would recommend that we basically don't try to change anything up there now or make different rules for open space, but rather be more or less compatible with the general other ownership in that area. In the Carson River Canyon, that we would again conform to the municipal code where you have restrictions, but we would potentially augment that with a limitation to shotgun shells, no slugs only during the hunting season in the Carson River Canyon with no target practice, or restrict some of the traditional uses, unregulated uses there. Is that kind of a summary of staff's
That's a great
recommendation?
summary.
Okay. Any discussion from the committee's perspective or thoughts? Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm totally in agreement with the west side. I mean, that's been going on for a long time. I mean, I've actually seen people standing on the TRT, shooting from the TRT. They're not shooting across the trail, so I guess they think it's legal. So, and everybody that hikes in that area in the fall knows to wear orange and be prepared for it. I'm a little more concerned in the Carson River Canyon, especially between Deer Run Road and the train, where the train heads north. Because between the V&T and if we get the rail trail through there, that's going to be a route that more tourists will take, more families will take, and it concerns me. East of that, maybe shotguns would be okay. Even though there will be a trail, that's going to be a single-track trail to the Lyon County line. But with the train going through there and maybe families and that sort of thing, I'm a little more concerned about Deer Run Road to where the train heads north.
Margie?
I agree with Donna, and I am wondering if it would be possible to allow shotgun hunting on the south side of the river on open space, but not on the north side of the river on open space. I was trying to get my map, I can't see my map clearly enough on this, but what I was trying to determine was, I don't know if I've got my directions right, but if you're talking river right as you're looking downstream, allowing shotgun or hunting there as prescribed by NDOW, but not on river left. Is that too complex?
I really like the plan as presented, and I do agree with both of you that there is some concern. I even have concern on the west side. However, with that, I think this is a very good start. And there are going to be places on the urban interface that are going to become more popular, more developed, more used. And I would just like to suggest that this would be, a living document as, this is a great start, and I'd rather start out with something that would have a lot of support rather than trying to reach prospectively to events that are going to occur in the future and try taking care of those now. I would just suggest that we revisit the ordinance whenever use seems to demand a change to the ordinance. That's what I would recommend in the cases by the river and in other places that are very popular.
Other comments? Yes, Laura.
I'll just make it brief. I agree with Donna. I also understand what you say and think it's wise. I'm going to be voting no. I don't think it's passive recreation. I have to view that consistently, and I just don't view hunting, and I like hunting. I just don't view it as passive recreation. I just wanted to explain my vote.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the board? Public comment? Last chance?
Dan, great tech again. Just so I get it clear, so we're kind of all agreed the west side, but when we look at the river, we're talking about from Deer Run Bridge downstream, because everything upstream of Deer Run to McTarnahan is already no hunting. So, we would be writing or adding to the ordinance, just addressing that specific reach and just talking about shotguns, and shotguns are going to be down in the river corridor. We don't know where our trail is, whether it's down in the corridor or not, I don't know, but that's what we're saying. So if we examine an ordinance, it's only going to be addressing that
Deer Run
downstream.
Road to the line, county line.
Okay. And, trying to say one bank or the other bank, the birds are going to go land somewhere, and so, that's not very, kind of like the guy shooting across the trail. It's hard to tell where did he shoot and where did it fall and is he playing the game. But this will get rid of all of that, semi-automatic weapon stuff that we're hearing up there. It's going to be really obvious for the patrols to tell what kind of shooting is going on. That's the issue I think that we're trying to address is all this target practice that goes on when we have places for them to do it appropriately.
Thank you, Dan. Any other public comment? Okay, do we have a motion?
Can I ask another question?
Sure, go ahead, Margie.
I'd like to ask if anybody, do any of you know, has hunting occurred along the Carson River from Deer Run Road? I mean, I know there's a lot of target shooting down there. Is hunting legal down there without considering our ordinances when it was private property?
Yes, hunting is allowed unless it's posted otherwise.
Okay, any other comments from the board? Okay. Committee, do we have a motion? Howard?
I'll make a motion. I move to approve hunting per Nevada state regulations on certain properties managed by the Open Space Division.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Toby seconds it. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay. Nay.
Nay.
Okay. I think it's 4-3. Do we want a roll call? Are you? Okay. Go ahead and do the roll call.
Chairperson Scott,
Aye.
Vice Chair Riedel.
Aye.
Member Inverson.
Nay, and I'd like to explain. I agree with Howard to some extent, but I'm afraid if we approve this now, walking it back later will be too difficult.
Member Evans.
Nay.
Member Fitzsimmons.
Nay.
Member Welch. Member Welborn. So the vote is 4-3.
Thank you. I would observe that it may be a year or two before the V&T gets close enough to the river to be in conflict, and we do have a chance to revisit this for that or maybe other reasons if it becomes a factor. But okay, moving forward, item 3D, consideration of moving up the meeting time from 6 o'clock to 5:30. Ann?
As well as the meeting schedule for next year, Mr. Chair. Per our municipal code 1306.070, the Open Space Advisory Committee shall have regular meetings not less than 1 month. And a few years ago, when the city went through citywide budget cuts, almost all the meetings citywide were reduced from whatever schedule they were on to about half that. We have continued following that policy, if you will. And so considering we have a municipal code saying that we will meet monthly to continue meeting every other month, there should be an action for that, as well as a proposal to change the meeting time to 5:30.
Okay, thank you. Discussion? Any thoughts? Margie, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Well, I'm not crazy about it being at 5:30 unless you can promise that our meetings aren't going to be quite so long as they sometimes draw out to. But I'm not gonna be a salmon this time.
Well, it's tough when you slam the chair like that. We'll do our best to keep them on track, but I guess from my thought was starting a half an hour earlier works well for me personally. It just, but I'm open to that, but I think it's kind of up to the committee what works best. Is there any public comment, since we're not getting much more from the committee? Okay, and the recommended action does not include any discussion about, I guess it does with the calendar. It takes care of the question on meeting dates. Do we have any further, Toby?
I guess just for our record, the motion is for 5:30, but the attached documentation says 6 PM, so that should probably be changed.
Correct. We will change that if approved by the committee.
Thanks, Toby. Any other discussion or question, comment? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve the meeting schedule of the Open Space Advisory Committee for calendar year 2016 and to change the meeting time from 6 PM to 5:30 PM.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Alan. And for clarification, we can have meetings more frequently should we choose to do so. Is that correct? This is simply the outside?
That is correct.
Thank you. Public comment? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? It's nice to see a majority. Okay. Item 3E. Rich, natural resource issues related to Buzzy's Ranch and the Ducks Unlimited. And Rich and I were out there with Ann and a couple members of Ducks Unlimited, and I'll be happy to try to fill in if you have anything you want me to add.
Great, thank you. And Margie, I'll make this short and sweet for you. So, as Chairman Scott mentioned, Ann and I met with Mick Anderson, who's currently leasing the Buzzy's Ranch, and then also John Ranlett, who's the project manager, and Jesse Shaw, who's the project engineer for the wetlands enhancement project at Buzzy's. We had some concerns. This is probably, I think, the third time that we've met with Ducks Unlimited, and so we made mention of those concerns on site. Some of them being the allocation of water for the wetlands, because if you're familiar with the layout, essentially where the wetlands are located, the water is tailwater off the Silver Saddle Ranch. And so from a long-term standpoint, I had concerns about whether or not you could effectively establish wetlands. And John Ranlett mentioned to me and kind of explained that even if it's a seasonal wetland, there's a benefit since it's a critical flyaway for the ducks, when they migrate. Some other concerns too, the initial plans had a fairly large footprint, a lot of disturbance, and we suggested at that time to make a smaller footprint, not as large of ponds, but maybe deeper ponds. And then access, not only to do the contract work out there, but if you had any future maintenance work that you wanted to do, you really have a difficult time to getting on site. So those are some of the things that were mentioned. John Ranlett said that he was going to try to get us a final plan set, and so that's kind of why we're making this a discussion-only topic. The plans are at about 85%. I did include what we have so far for your review, and they're anticipating getting a final plan set within the next couple weeks, which we'll forward, and they're hoping to go to construction next fall. So that's kind of where we are, and I know Ann and Bruce, if you'd like to add anything.
Ann, did you have anything to add?
No, I don't have anything to add to that.
Okay, I think this has the potential to be a really nice improvement for wetlands, as well as to take advantage of some lower areas that presently are kind of sumps, if you will, for irrigation, both off the Silver Saddle as well as off Buzzy's Ranch. So to me, it's a nice potential investment by Ducks Unlimited. We do want to make sure it's sustainable and that it can be managed and worked with by Mickey Anderson, and they seemed quite aware of and familiar with working with agricultural operations. So I think we'll be looking forward to seeing their revisions to the plan. And I did tell them I didn't think they needed to be here tonight because I didn't want to have them come up from Sacramento, I think is where they come from, for something that really wasn't in a position where we could act on it. But I thought it was important for the committee to know this is an active project out there. We're going to see it. probably at our next meeting, with a request that we consider recommending approval so they can get into the funding cycle and actually do their work next fall. So I wanted to make sure the committee was not unaware that it was out there and it was more than just discussion, because we've had discussions over time, but we've now seen some specifics, and I think it's coming along. In my mind, it's coming around to where it should be something with the comments that we gave them and the comments that Mickey made about his operation, that they should be able to create something that's a real amenity without destroying or disturbing in a major way what we have out there now. The Silver Saddle Ranch does have the use of water, surface water now, so some tailwater potentially is still going to find its way down. In a couple of drought years, Rich, it's a concern for everybody, and I couldn't agree with you more. But any discussion? Yes, Donna.
I have a couple of questions. The stuff was pretty difficult to see and understand. And I have one question. I assume there's fencing to keep the cattle out of that area. Who's going to be responsible for keeping that fencing in good repair?
We have not discussed that. We did recommend that they put the fencing in because we wanted to control access from a grazing management. So that's something we'll have to look into for sure. I don't know. Do you have anything?
I might just throw it out there that it would be us, because our contract with Mick Anderson to graze that area of the ranch, as long as he and/or James Gerard hold their water rights, they reserve the exclusive right to graze the lands. That's the only contract we have. We don't have any other contract on an exchange of money or required maintenance or anything. And maybe if we, and it's probably wise ranch management to have some sort of maintenance requirements or understanding between both parties.
And then my second question is, I'm assuming that there's never going to be a plan for any foot traffic access to this area, like hiking trails or anything?
Not in the Unified Pathways Master Plan. The only trails in that area are around the property, not through it.
I'd like to add one more thing, too, that I completely forgot. With the disturbance and all the potential excavation, we did also recommend that they have a reseeding plan that was not included in the initial plan. And so we're going to provide a native seed mix and then make sure that that's another component of the project.
Okay, other comments from the committee? Yes, Margie.
You can't kill an old weed. I just want to say that I think, I find it to be a really interesting plan. It's got some good potential, but there are a lot of little pockets of pepperweed and bull thistle and poison hemlock out through those fields. And I would ask that get into your budget and planning that if this construction is going to move forward as it looks like it might, you need to do a really thorough scouring for weed treatment in the seasons before the construction begins. A really thorough scouring. That's it.
Thank you. That's a good point, and probably something that might be worth bringing up with Ducks Unlimited as part of their preliminary construction, prior to construction type. Okay, any other comments from the committee? Any comments from the public? Okay, some good points. This is a non-action item, so we will move forward to staff discussion on activities, projects, grants located within the Carson River area.
Okay, Mr. Chair, the next three items are updates to the committee on many of our activities. So this first item focuses on the Carson River area, and the first item was the open space tour. Carson Water Sub Conservancy had an interest. Every year, each spring, they conduct a watershed-wide tour from Alpine County all the way down to Stillwater. And some of the comments that they've had on those tours is some people have asked for more in-depth, shorter tours. So this was the first time they've offered an open space tour, and they had grant funding from NDEP. Member Welch joined us for that tour. In your packet, at the back of this agenda item, Carson Water Sub Conservancy on their registration form asked folks why they were interested in coming. So that also helped us with our talking points on the tour. And it was very well received, and all the responses were positive. And I don't know if you want to add anything, Alan, to that?
No, I really agree. Everybody that I talked to was very happy with it and looking forward to future tours.
Great. And then September 26th was Public Lands Day. Each year, the Kiwanis conducts a cleanup along the Carson River. They did so this year, and in an effort to celebrate our land conveyance from BLM, we asked the Kiwanis if they would be willing to partner with us. And the morning was filled with 170 Navy Junior ROTC students from Carson High School. They cleaned up quite a few areas along the river. Again, Member Welch was out there as a member of the Kiwanis. And then the afternoon, we had 2 bands that played music, and Margie Evans joined us for that as well, and a barbecue. And a couple of photos, and then in the last photo, and right under there, Public Lands Day, we had an enlarged patent for Silver Saddle Ranch and an enlarged check that we exchanged with BLM. And as it happens to be, that was Leon Thomas's last day with us. He has now left and moved to Arizona. We have had a couple volunteer projects. Chris Berggren, I think he came to the committee, did a presentation on his project on the west side of Prison Hill, some trail rehabilitation and new trail wayfinding markers. And then Shelley Aldine volunteers with the Circles initiative in town, and they came to the north end of Prison Hill and helped extend the split rail fence up there. I think many of you have driven past that fence, and we've helped to designate the parking area. There was about a 700-foot gap in between a pedestrian walkthrough where the middle school students cross the road and run cross-country, and then the parking lot. We didn't really necessarily want to spend the money. We didn't feel we needed to spend the money, but though there are some members of our public who feel that the fence didn't pertain to them, so they drove around, and they were causing resource damage. And so we added more fence, and with the help of Circles Initiative, they helped construct the first 250 feet as a volunteer project. And actually, I think that was their first project, Circles. So they look forward to participating in the future. An update on the Eagle Valley Creek Bridge, under construction, proud to say. And it should be completed by the end of December, I guess, all depending on weather. Federal Land Access Program, that grant was awarded. Central Federal Lands came out in September to tour the Sierra Vista Lane area and to really understand what the project will be about. And the way this program works is they will actually design it. So the Parks Department with Vern Cron and Rich and Public Works and several other city folks joined Central Federal Lands for a walk around Sierra Vista Lane. And in December, they're expected to come back and give us a report and their recommendations. The management plan, I hope to present the final draft to you. Quite a few comments on that. So I'm really pleased that people participated in the public meetings and submitted comments in writing. And so it's actually taken us a while to get through those comments. Silver Saddle Ranch.
So we've been working fairly hard on the transition from BLM to Carson City and the management of all the open space properties that came from BLM. A lot of emphasis has been placed on Silver Saddle Ranch. Now that we're essentially managing infrastructure, all those old buildings and the houses, we've been trying to work hard at taking care of those. And so some of the projects we've done out there included some arbor work around the Red House and the White House complex. It was done for a couple of reasons, tree health being the primary reason, and also having a liability concern with dead branches that can come down on someone while they're out there. We had also, with that arbor work, we also did a systemic herbicide treatment for elm beetle, and within weeks we saw trees come back alive. And we included some water to supplement during the drought. We're working on a landscape plan. These are just initial steps with staff that we want to branch out and work with Friends of Silver Saddle and also committee members to come up with a final plan for that. There's been a lot of trail maintenance, pruning along those trails. We've done some herbicide treatment on Silver Saddle and Buzzy's Ranch in areas where we're trying to keep perennial pepperweed under control. We've had some issues with old water mains. We've had a couple leaks that we've uncovered and done repairs on. And so potentially in the future, it might be a good idea for us to look at maybe replacing the water lines there at the Red House. If I understand it right, in discussion with BLM, they thought that the water line was 60 years old, and it was old galvanized steel. And so every year we have multiple areas where it's rusting out and leaking. So that might be a good thing in the future. A lot of debris cleanup around the housing complex. We're looking at maybe future projects, some painting projects, volunteer projects with Friends of Silver Saddle Ranch or other volunteers. And that's all I can think of with Silver Saddle at this point. Very busy. We've just finished winterizing some of the buildings as well. So, oh sure. In continuing on, some of the grants that we're working with, in August, we were asked by Ed James, who's a district manager for Carson Water Subconservancy District, if we wanted to put in for some funding through the Carson Truckee Water Conservancy District for channel clearing and snagging work in the river. And so a little bit of history about this. The state of Nevada Division of Water Resources has a mandated responsibility to keep the channel clear and debris free. And over the last 3 legislatures, they haven't funded this program, but they've considered it very important. And so they've kind of asked for conservation districts and other resource management groups like Carson Water Subconservancy District to continue with that program. So we put in for $15,000 and we received $10,000 from the grant, and we were able to keep our seasonal crew of 4 people on for an additional month to manually cut up and remove some of the large woody debris. And this program currently is being presented to the Interim Finance Committee with the state legislature to see if they can get those funds reinstated since it's one of their mandated responsibilities, but we have not heard what the results of that process is. We also have been working on the grant with NDP, which we mentioned before, on Golden Eagle Lane, but we also showed multiple sites. Sierra Vista Lane was a very big concern for me, not only above Sierra Vista Lane, but below it, which I believe is all open space now. Also on Prison Hill, we've been working hard to kind of block off access to that location. If you've driven by 5th Street and Carson River Road, you'll see all the work we've done there. And we've done this hoping that we can go to Nevada Division of State Parks for the Parks and Recreation Trails Grant, which we'll be probably bringing to the committee probably the next meeting.
We already did.
Oh, we did. We did, sorry. And Southern Nevada Public Lands Management Act, we're currently working on some future grants, which we've brought before this committee as well. So pretty active as far as grant requests.
Thank you, Rich and Ann. Any comments from the committee? Yes, Laura.
Oh, no, you went first. Go ahead.
Well, I've got a couple of comments on this report. I hope, first of all, that we can have more of those Silver Saddle barbecues and music things. That was really a fun afternoon. I didn't get to stay as long as I wanted. I had some personal things to take care of, but while I was there, it was really a blast. And thank you so much for putting that together. The other thing I wanted to comment on is about the woody debris. I was a stream person before I was a weed person, and I am a weed person because I am a stream person. And woody debris is one of the core characteristics that promotes habitat and ecological health in a riparian zone. So, tongue-in-cheek, navigating the Carson River with kayaks and stuff, I can see some points to keeping some of those areas clear to protect from that. But I would hope that along the river, along the banks, those items are not being removed because they are useful to control erosion, to regrow habitat, to provide refuge, ... Thank you.
I just wanted to go back to the management plan. You said it should be ready for the committee's review and approval at the next meeting. Will we see it just in our board packet at that point, prior to the meeting?
And I don't know if I can make the December, that was the goal, but both Lynn Zong at Resource Concepts and I have been working on it together. She's gone now, and then I'm gone, so we may not be able to finish off the detail, because I would like to give the committee a month, a good time to review it.
In light of that, I'd suggest maybe the target be put off to the meeting after that.
To February. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as anxious as we are to get it to the committee in final form, I think it really makes sense not to rush the last step, with the full expectation of complete review by the committee ahead of the meeting.
I think
So-
Roger had it on my annual review, so if I want a positive review, it will be done.
Okay,
I have one
yes,
other comment.
Donna.
I was just thinking, in the interest of saving money wherever we can, has there been any attempt to contact the plumbing companies around the area to see if they would be willing to volunteer, if nothing else, their services for some of the plumbing problems? I mean, coming from a longtime plumbing family, I understand, that just like any other organization, they're often looking for volunteer things for their own people.
We can certainly take a look at that, but there's a lot of hard capital pipes that we will need to buy for the repairs.
Any other comments from the committee? I think this list and the discussion we've had really points to the fact that staff has a lot more to do than 8 to 5 Monday through Friday in terms of keeping things going, being part of this process. And you represent kind of the community outreach part of this committee. We're not overly attended sometimes at our meetings, and I think it's just really good to continue to allow the community to understand what's going on and how many different things are happening, and to involve so many people in our resources. I really appreciate that, and I think sometimes it takes a little bit away from your other duties, and I think we have to balance, but we also have to understand that what you're doing in those functions is, I think, very, very helpful in the bigger picture and getting more mileage out of the efforts that a limited budget and a limited staff, place on us. So thank you for doing that. Do we have any public comment on this item? All right. We ready for 4B?
Okay, projects on the west side of town, discussion only. The first activity listed is the Ash to Kings Trail. On August 29th, we had the ribbon cutting. And I don't know how well you can see in your photo there, but it was a bike tube, was our ribbon for the event. Attended probably by more than 100 folks, most of who bike rode up there. Epic Bike Rides, it's an event. The inaugural event is June 2016. They have signed an agreement with the Carson City Visitors Bureau, I think for 5 years. And so it's a mountain bike event, mostly on the trails, but they'll do a few things downtown on the streets as well, with 3 different distances and challenges. And so because it's taking place on some of the trails, that we are part of that planning process. The Marshall property acquisition. This property is located up in Upper Ash Canyon, right next to our Wilson acquisition and right outside Hobart Reservoir. This was on our open space opportunities list, but it kind of came and went, and when it came back again, we were broke. So we didn't have the money to purchase it, and fortunately, we talked with Nevada Land Trust and Nevada State Parks, and together they were able to acquire a grant and other state funding. And just a few weeks ago, Nevada Land Trust did acquire it. Now they are in transition to transfer it to state parks. That will probably still take another few months, but I hope we'll have some sort of celebration because it still achieves our goals of public land ownership. Let's see. Next.
We are continuing to work with Julie Coop. She's the honors biology teacher at Carson High School on the vegetation monitoring project at Quill Ranch. High school students are helping do line transects monitoring on a Russian knapweed problem we have in that area. And so we've been working in the fall on doing the monitoring and reseeding and herbicide treatment. And then in the spring, we go to the classroom and we teach them about invasive weeds, line transect monitoring, reseeding, wildlife habitat, water quality. And so it's a fun project, and it's a good opportunity for us to reach out to the local high school. And I know that Margie and Ann have both been real active in the past on that project. And I have to say that Julie Coop is just a great resource in our area. But it's been very successful so far. We're mapping currently up there to see if we can find Russian knapweed, and it's a lot harder to find. So, thank you.
Okay, so 2 property acquisitions. Michael Fagan, this was the 20 acres on Highway 50 near the Clear Creek interchange that we came to the committee a few months ago. We are still in discussions with him. Again, because open space doesn't have much money for acquisition, Michael Fagan was open to a property exchange. We found a couple properties. After further research, they fell through for one reason or another, but we continue to look at a few more with Michael Fagan. The good news, as small as it is right now, since I wrote this staff report, I talked with Jenny Scanlon with the Land and Water Conservation Fund. She said that fund could qualify to purchase this property, but it is a 50-50 match. And so I'm still looking into those options of what can we trade, what can we use to purchase the property, but it's ongoing still. The Old Woods Ranch, this is the property that borders the Horse Creek Ranch Conservation Easement. So they have about 1/3 of the lower meadow and forested land. This has been in front of the committee in the past. We submitted a grant application in 2010 to the Natural Resources Conservation Service, and it wasn't funded at that time. The family is very serious about completing a conservation easement. They are getting their family papers in order, all their agreements. They've gone to the planning Division to find out what can they build or not build. So they're doing a lot of work on their end. They are working on a forest stewardship plan with NDF for the general health of the forest, but also that would be a requirement if we submit a grant to the Forest Legacy Program next year. And right now, there's a large group of people that met to discuss the acquisition of an easement. And NRCS could be a funding source, but it's a 50-50 match. Forest Legacy is a 75-25. However, still, if we look at the value of Michael Fagan's conservation easement, I think it was $500,000 or $1 million. Half?
Million, I think.
Million? And so we still don't have that much funding. But just letting you know, this is active. At some point, I will be back in front of the committee to ask to submit a grant application or whatever the next step is. But it is really active.
Staff worked with Lenzog, and we put in for another NDEP 319 grant to continue the erosion control project in Ash Canyon. And so the funding amount that we requested was $10,000. We received full funding. And I think this is the fourth year of the program. And Open Space is obligated $10,000 a year to do annual maintenance on Ash Canyon Road, and so that qualifies as match. With last year's funding, we repaired 3 water bars. We installed 3 additional water bars and did some excavation work on the Ash to Kings Trail access parking area because we were seeing significant runoff and erosion at that site. And so that included shaping the edge, the boundary of the parking area, applying some rock riprap, and then putting a base down. And we also included a fence so that it's more of a defined access point. Because what we were finding is people would park and they'd go straight down to the trail from where they park rather than use the trail where we wanted them to access the trail. And so I think it turned out nice. This year's grant is going to be doing some erosion work a little bit lower. There's a BMP that was put in just above the water tanks where we've got a brand new trail built right in the middle of it, and so we're hoping to get rid of that trail and do some reseeding in a couple areas. We also would like to do some more work where most people park on the other side of the pond because we're having similar issues where people are just heading straight down to the trail at points where they park. So those are the 3 areas that we were hoping to focus this year. And if I understand correctly, they have been identified in that erosion control plan for Ash Canyon.
Thank you, Rich. Any comments from the committee or questions? Alan?
I just wanted to add, in terms of information on the Ash to Kings Canyon Trail, Jeff Potter was able to get a trail dozer and over 3 days pushed through about just over 9/10 of a mile segment, which eliminates the part of the trail where you were on the road. And it's already getting a fair amount of use. Saw Toby up there yesterday, freezing. And so I think that's going to should be very good condition by the time the epic race takes place. There's still a fair amount of finish work to do, but it's definitely getting use.
Great. Jeff has been a wonderful friend of West Side Trails and other areas. Any other committee comments? Laura?
I just have a question, this is just not thought through, but with Michael Fagan, your oral presentation was a little different than what's written here, and I think maybe you were updating it when you talked about there are a couple of properties identified. And here you say the value didn't match in your presentation. You said it for was it other reasons?
It's both.
Okay, because, I mean, again, this is just based on my limited experience buying land in Teton Valley and conservation easements, but if Jenny has half and he's selling his property, right, if it's on the market, wouldn't that, I mean, isn't that an opportunity for us to match with either a property that's worth less? Can't we match Jenny's with that? Or somehow offer him, assuming there's any, gain, it seems to me there's got to be some way to work this out. If we think potentially we could be halfway there with a match.
So fortunately for us, Michael does not have it listed on the market first because he has a desire to sell it to open space.
I'm talking about, I thought he was selling his whole enchilada.
Oh, the ranch.
Yeah.
The ranch. Well, we did take that to the board, and I think the committee, it was the recommendation from the committee not to purchase it because
No, I agree with all that. What I'm saying is rather than purchase it, we're talking about exchanging. And the properties, my understanding is the properties that we've kind of offered up don't match value, and maybe there are other issues. But if now it looks like maybe from the state, from Jenny Scanlon, we're going to have an opportunity for a half match, wouldn't the properties that we're offering up be half the value? And also, if he has this sale coming from the big ranch, there may be some opportunities, we can't purchase it, for us to offer some kind of a, conservation easement for 100% of it, so he gets a tax break. It just seems like there's a lot of things happening here that may open up what we previously were looking at.
there's certainly a lot of things. One of the things I learned from Juan, no land acquisition is easy. So yeah, it is complex. And we'll take a look at whatever options that we have.
Yes, Howard.
First of all, good work on the ash trailhead side. It really looks nice. The one thing I do have concerns, I know on Kings Canyon, the dirt part of Kings Canyon Road, we have that little dance that we play with the Forest Service, but the lower part of that road is washing away really quickly. So if you can keep that in the back of your mind to get Forest Service to help us out on that, that would be great.
Yes, Margie?
Well, I just have a general kind of tongue-in-cheek comment to the thousands of people at home who are watching this. I find it ironic that you will go to a place where you can hike and then try to save steps right at the beginning. Just saying.
With that, I'll ask for public comment. Any other comments from the committee? Okay, this is not an action item. We'll go to 4C, which is activities in other areas.
These items pretty much take place all across the city. The first item is the Bureau of Land Management, their resource management plan. They had more than 600 unique comments. So like the comments that we submitted from Carson City, it was not a formed letter. And so that's what they consider as unique comments, things that they had to look at and not necessarily write a response to me specifically, to us, but what they did in their comments, they generalized it in their whole big form, so by subject categories. And which is a broad way to look at, are the comments substantive, is how they refer to it, to change something in their document. And I'm proud to say that some of our comments made changes to their final resource management plan. I don't know the date it will be released. It has gone out to the counties, the internal group, to see if have they addressed some of our concerns. I anticipate in the next few months the final will be out for review. The Carson City Weed Coalition, last year, after it was sort of dissolved under cooperative extension, it now falls under Carson City and specifically under supervision by Open Space and Rich specifically. And so it is a challenge, in a sense, added to our workload. I worked with Margie, with both of us, when she was at Cooperative Extension. At least it was a two-person effort. She could represent folks citywide, and I could bring thoughts from the city. That's still the concept of the Weed Coalition, and Dan Anderson, who works for us, he works with private property owners, but it's a lot more involved, I think, than as much as Margie and I work together. But with Rich and Dan working together, they are working on some grants related to weed, so actually bringing more money into the city, which is a good thing. The Eagle Valley Trails Committee had their 3 very successful open houses. I think I saw the minutes. Was it 58 people came? It almost seemed like there were 58 people at one of the meetings.
There were 58 total. Yeah, I thought we had more at some of the meetings, but yeah, there were 58
Okay.
total.
Okay. But in my observations, I thought it was very well attended, a lot of really good comments. Do you want to add anything?
We beat out Public Works like you wouldn't believe. The poor people at Public Works didn't have anybody but us.
Foundation for Carson City Parks and Recreation, we had the annual award ceremony on October 5th. One of the organizations that we work with on a regular basis is River Wranglers, and they were awarded Organization of the Year, and Linda Conlon for all her efforts at Ambrose, Bailey Fishing Pond, and other cleanup events, and wrapping the cottonwoods along the Carson River. Just amazing energy. The freeway multi-use path between Highway 50 and 5th Street is currently under design, and we have an interest in that because we helped purchase the Raith parcel to make that project happen. Park ranger has been hired. His start date is actually now November 19th, but he's pulling into town tonight, I believe, and ready to start work on Thursday. John Costello, he's moving here from Colorado, and Donna and Toby, I think both had a chance to meet him because he came here in person for his second interview. Coincidentally, it was during one of the Eagle Valley Trail Committee workshops. And I said, this is happening, you have an option to come if you want, and it was a great opportunity for him to come and talk with people and meet people in the community. I think gave him a good first impression as well, the involvement. And then we have also been busy with training and conferences. I went to the National Recreation and Park Association. It was down in Las Vegas. That was my first time attending that. The Land Trust Alliance in Sacramento. Roger went for his first time this year. And the Nevada Weed Management Association, and Rich and I are in the photo there where we had a booth for the Carson City Weed Coalition. Any questions?
Thank you, Ann. Any comments or questions from the committee? Public comments? Okay, hearing none. Future agenda items. We talked about the master plan, the management plan, excuse me, and we'll expect that probably right after the first of the year, I would guess. What other items do we have? Anything from the committee or anything from staff?
I'd just like to say that the next trash mob is this Saturday, and they're going to be out along the Highway 50 multi-use path on the north side from Deer Run Road or Arrowhead headed west. And one of the focuses is going to be hand-pulling puncture vine, which is the best way to get puncture vine. So,
I hope you mean pulling with a shovel.
no, we hand pull. It pulls up very easy if you have a good glove.
And it's probably quite moist right now, so.
So it should be pretty easy to pull them up. And it's actually, I rode along there not too long ago, and there's still a lot of green, not fully developed puncture vine along that route, so.
I was wondering when we might hear some results of potential projects for grant funding through Southern Nevada Public Lands Management Act, when we had our joint meeting with the Parks
We've not had a
Commission.
chance to meet with the working group yet, but it is scheduled December 8th. And so we will probably have results probably in February.
And that would be on track to get our grant in time?
I hope so, yes. It will be, Roger says.
And that's Alan and Margie, right, are our subcommittee members? Okay, great. Okay, any other future agenda items. Any public comment on that one? Okay. And any final public comments? Awfully quiet. Okay, our next meeting is on the agenda that we just got, but I don't have,
Our next meeting is actually scheduled in December, because that's a regular scheduled meeting.
okay.
What day?
I don't have my calendar. Third Monday? December 21st?
Yep, that's it, December 21st.
Okay.
I see one thing.
Yes, Margie, go ahead.
I just want to say that I hope that my comment about not wanting to spend 2 or 3 hours at a meeting from 5:30 on was taken too terribly seriously. Of course, I'll do whatever is needed. And I was feeling really bad about your comment there, Mr. Wilkinson. Do not cut things short. If we need to discuss, we discuss.
Thank you, Margie. Yeah, we didn't take it too seriously, but you'll hear about it. Okay, any other final comments? All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Now, Margie, you missed your cue. Okay, the meeting is adjourned.
It had time to get a little bite of dinner.